Hey everybody, this is Randy Schwantz. I'm here with Jamie No. Jamie is with IGA out of Nashville, Tennessee. How you doing, Jamie?
I'm great, Randy. How are you today?
I'm good, man. So share with us a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so my wife, Carly, and I have been married for 4 years. We adopted a 16-year-old 2.5 years ago from Colombia, South America. He's now 18 years old. We have a baby girl, the biological, that's now 16 months old, Carly. And so that's our family. We live on a little farm out here with some horses and big dogs and like it kind of messy.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, tell me about what your operation, your agency looks like.
Sure. So we have, we're currently about $4 million in revenue. We're 6 years old. We have satellite, soon to be full service offices, and we're based out of Franklin, right outside Nashville, Tennessee, but we have satellite offices in Memphis, Chattanooga, and now Knoxville. Have about 10 salespeople, a good mix of some seasoned guys and that have been in a long time, some of those of which are my partners. And then we heavily recruit young folks, both on the service and the sales side, which is one reason we're so involved with the wedge process and have been for some time now. So we got some young folks we're mentoring, and then we always have sales interns in the pipeline coming along.
And isn't it true that you had left a previous firm and started from scratch, and on day one, because of some of our previous history at that other firm, day one, you just jumped on board with us. You're the only one that's ever done that, to my knowledge.
Yeah, we did. So without going into detail of the previous firm, but I worked for a big regional firm that got bought by a national firm, both very successful organizations that I have a lot of respect for, but had the entrepreneur spirit and wanted to go do something different and grow it from the ground up. And so what I knew is that we were going to hire a lot of young folks. I was a college intern myself, intern for 2.5 years, starting the business when I was 20, an intern for 2.5 years in that firm. And so I knew that I needed some kind of structure, some kind of basis. And so I knew what I knew. And to this day, every sales call I go on still use part of the original wedge script, which is some humor in that. As you know, years ago, I kind of got made fun of that I didn't buy into the wedge, which wasn't a complete true statement, but it's been the basis for a lot of our success. So where we started is I sent my initial 2 salespeople other than myself to your school, essentially day one. I don't know if it's the first 6 months or first 90 days or whatever it was. And then we realized, okay, if we're going to do that, how are we going to track this? And how are we going to measure success other than just new business? But how are we going to track our hit ratios? When it goes into marketing, do we close it? Or how many times do we kick it out of marketing and all that? So within the first 12 months, we bought into iWins. And from there, again, we're 6 years old. We've been having CRISP meetings for at least 5 of those years, basically taking abstract, you call it pooge ideas, and breaking it down to somebody that a 6th grader that's never understood the concept or the process we're talking about can understand that, and then tying that into a wedge or a picture perfect type situation. And then the last piece that we've done here in the last 2.5 years, and in my opinion, I've shared this with you previously, that's been the biggest differentiator to help us to save on hard costs. What I mean is, real money, and then opportunity costs is putting in the personality test, your personality test, the grit test. In fact, I haven't even shared this with you, but even if they score the level that you guys say is what we ought to go after, and I won't get into all that now unless you ask me to, but we've even recreated and looked at some specific characteristics of, here are the people that haven't made it, and here are the people that are, and what do they have in common? And there's one metric in there specifically that all of the ones who have made it have, and all the ones who haven't made it don't have, that we're rethinking through that process. So,
talk about that for a moment. I mean, that's
okay.
Everybody out there is looking for the holy grail, because I mean, think about it. The future of all agencies, the difference between where you are today and where you're going to be 5 years from now is direct proportion to your ability to hire and develop newbies, because your oldies are going to get old. Yeah. So why don't you kind of enlighten us some? What was that? What's that thing that you saw that made the difference? What were those characteristics?
Well, so let's take a step back. Let me tell you kind of how I got there. So I had an intern my very first intern that is still a great friend of mine today. He's an amazing dude. But if I'd given him the personality test, I would have never hired him. So he was an intern for 10 months. He goes into sales for us once he graduated from college. And in 90 days, he's done. He quit. And I was devastated. I'd spent an enormous amount of emotional energy with him, not less the financial investment and the opportunity cost. I mean, if I, that 10 or 12 months I spent with him, I could have been spending with somebody else that, in return was a producer that made it. And so I called you and said, hey man, I'm broken. How do I fix this? And that's when we started with it. And he was such a good friend. That young man ended up taking the personality test after he had quit, where I could see how he had done versus the others. And so the grit test is basically saying, looking for grit. Will you run through that window and get back up and growl at me and want more of it? And so we got a certain score that we won't even give somebody an in-person interview until they take that. So I spend that $140, $150, whatever it is, before I'll ever meet with somebody, kind of as a prequal. And so with that now, so we want to meet them in person. So then from there, we're going through the multi-interview process and so forth. But what we found is the last piece here is that if they're low on interpersonal trust, they don't make it with us. That doesn't mean they won't make it with ABC agency or a big national broker, but we are still a boutique working on being a regional broker, and you have to buy into our system. You have to buy into our culture. You have to believe that even when things are really tough and I'm really driving hard at you, that I've got your best interest in hand, and that if you will follow the process, you will be $1 million producer and make $400,000 or $500,000 down the road. And so we will not, moving forward, hire a newbie. Doesn't matter if they score off the charts on the personality test, if they still have a low interpersonal trust, because we literally went through it, probably about 15 candidates, and all the ones who had low interpersonal trust, even though they scored high, had not made it. And all the ones that are on their way to major being $1 million producers all had high interpersonal trust.
Wow, it's a very interesting and very insightful view. And for those out there listening, universal trust is when it's low, it's just filled with skepticism, and they're always afraid something's going wrong. The glass is half empty. They're looking for somebody to screw them, all that kind of stuff. When you have high interpersonal trust, not only does it change inside the culture, that also has an impact on their ability to build relationships with people and be likable and things like that. So there's kind of, and I'll try to make this quick, but there's 8 components. The biggest one at the top is drive. In other words, if they got great interpersonal trust, but no drive, then they're not going to make it. So that's number one. But the hidden secret Jamie discovered was also interpersonal trust. Very powerful. So where do you find producers? Just curiously.
Yeah. So when we were we're 4 million now, and hopefully going to double that in the next 2 or 3 years. We're betting big on the future and throwing a lot of money and time and energy at it. But when we were a $1 million agency, we committed $100,000 to MTSU school in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It bounces back and forth between the first and largest public university in the state, between that and UT Knoxville. And so I was recruiting in the marketing department. They have an insurance department as well, which we support financially and find some really good backroom people there. But in their marketing department, they were wanting to put an emphasis in sales. And I said, well, hey, let's do something that works for both of us. So we committed $100,000 over 5 years to MTSU. It's now named the Insurance Group of America Sales Chair. And so I'll speak to 300 or 400 students a semester, just telling them about life, telling them about sales. Really and sincerely from the bottom of my heart, try to get back and just talk to them in a very candid way about the things that maybe a recruiter that walks in there won't talk to them about, what the real world looks like. And very honestly, I go in not shaved, shirt untucked, jeans, and just a dude, not trying to be some big corporate big shot. And from that, we'll probably have that 400 students, somewhere between 50 to 100, depending on the semester, will come out and want to talk to us after class. We give them a business card, and we're just very transparent about, hey, nice to meet you. Would love to talk further with you. If you're interested, email us and we'll email you the grit personality test. no hard feelings, but if you don't score a certain level on that, doesn't mean you won't be successful at sales, but we're not the right spot for you. And so that helps us qualify who we go to the interview process with. And so out of that 400 students that we see, 50 to 100 will come outside. 25 to 40 will actually email us, and then there'll be about 6 to 8 that we'll interview, and then we'll narrow that down to 2 or 3 that fit for other reasons. One thing you said early on 10, 15 years ago is if you won't have them at Thanksgiving dinner, don't hire them. And we stay true to that process. So that's what happens. So that's how we go through it. We got involved in a local university. It's been great for the university. We give money to them and show love to those students. And in return, we get an opportunity to see some really young, bright people. So
you've gone from 0 to 4 million in revenue in 6 years from scratch. Yes. Mostly organic, all organic.
So to clarify, I got to buy $385,000 of revenue from my previous agency. Since then, we've probably bought, we've bought $250,000 in book purchase. So you could say less than $600,000 of revenue was purchased at some point.
Yeah.
And the rest of it has been organic, including this year in COVID through November, we're up 26%. And so it's just, it's not rocket science. It's a lot of hard work, but really it's a lot of training too. And I'm not trying to be a commercial for you, but we really do buy into the system. I use the example all the time that college football's been going on for 100 years. Why is Nick Saban the most successful coach? First of all, he recruits well, which is what we try to do at MTSU. But then we just block and tackle, because going back to football, either you score by touch, you run the ball, you throw the ball, or you kick a field goal to score, right? The ways of scoring hasn't changed. And so it's not that every week we're sitting in our new business meeting, our CRIS meeting, that we're creating a new wedge, but we're recreating it and getting more crisp on that to help ourselves win. And so it's just doing the same thing over and over and over and being very meticulous about it to try to better articulate and differentiate from our competitors.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn from sports. Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, Bill Belichick, Coach K, whoever it is that's your hero, and maybe it's somebody else, but certainly winning professions in terms of what they do to grow, that will help you grow your agency. So congratulations on that. Let me ask you this. What do you feel like has been the most beneficial thing, as a part of Bignition here? Is it the training programs, the coaching calls, the tools, the systems? Kind of what's your favorite thing?
I can't answer that. It's all of it. And because what I mean by it, if you go back to the original question, and sincerely, I mean this. So we started out with the coaching or to the schools. So that was great. That was a great process. Then we latched on to the iWins program. That was great. We could track from marketing to from cold call to sale, where we went wrong or what our statistics were. But then, I'm still spending a lot of time hiring people and not getting success. And so that's when the personality test came in. So I don't think it's a one trigger. You either, in my opinion, and we're all in if you don't buy all in, you might as well not buy in. And I hope that doesn't offend you or anybody else, but you have to buy in the whole process, right? You can't go recruit well. Back to football. You can't recruit well, but not have a disciplined team. You can't have a disciplined team, but not focus on the details. So it's really, you have to have all of it to go through that. And listen, it's still a lot of hard work, and it's not the magic button, right? I don't want to sound like I'm just trying to do a commercial here, but if you're good, so we all know what multiples are on agencies. And so the average agency like myself cannot go and purchase what the private equity is doing. So if we're going to grow, we're going to have to grow our own. And how do we do that? Well, you can go poach people from other agencies, and that's not a bad approach, and we do that. But if you're going to 10 times it, you're going to have to go find people outside the organization. And so when you do that, you've got to give them a system. It doesn't mean that they're going to go out and from A to Z say the script of the wedge, but you've got to give them a form. You got to give them a basis of what to do to help them say, this prospective buyer said this, and so I should say this. Otherwise, you're just going to spend a boatload of money and not get a return.
Yeah. So What's the one thing you would say someone who's sitting on the fence about joining our network and becoming a Bignition sort of client?
What's the one thing I would say to them?
Yep.
What's your alternative? If you don't, how you gonna get there? You know, what's your plan? You know, I mean, you've gotta have a process. I mean, that doesn't mean we're not intuitive. It doesn't mean we're not entrepreneurial. But if you don't have a process and you don't have a system, you're gonna be looking in 3 and 5 years and you're still sitting where you are, or you're sitting where you are and you spend a boatload of money with no success.
Yeah. So everybody, that's Jamie No, IGA, Nashville, Tennessee. Congratulations on your success. It's an amazing story, boss.
Thanks, man. I'm grateful to be here.